So let's do a very quick review because we're in the middle of chapter 7 anyway. So we're going to be discussing the same things anyway. We are talking about how the Jew relates to the world. So when we're discussing the Jew relating to the world, we say there are some things that God told him don't relate with the world. Those are all the things that are forbidden. For example, you cannot elevate pig. God comes to the Jew, he says, there's no way for you to elevate pig. You cannot make it. There's no spark of godliness in a pig. Therefore, don't come close to a pig when it comes to eating. Maybe for other things you're allowed to. But when it comes to eating, you cannot elevate a pig. And therefore, don't come close to it. And there's other things. You cannot elevate the relationship with your neighbor's wife. You cannot elevate all the forbidden things in the Torah. There's no way for you to elevate them, so stay away from them. Then we discovered, last time, that besides that, and this is called Dvarim Asurim, things that are jailed. What does it mean, jailed? Things that are jailed, it means they are jailed in the hands of the Klippa, and there's no way for you to elevate them. You won't be capable because they are jailed. But then we said, last week we started discussing Klippas Noga. There are some things that have spark of godliness in them. Kosher animals, a cow, if it was shechted the right way, and if you eat it for the right reason, you can elevate it. But then we say you should know that if you eat it for the wrong reason, it is still forbidden. It is still not good. What is the right reason? And we discussed the right reason, make it simple. The right reason, you eat it for the sake of God. The wrong reason, you eat it for your sake. 99% of the time, we eat for our sake. Yeah? Unless it's Shabbos, we discuss. Or for a joke, for example, 99% of the jokes are for your own enjoyment, for your own amusement. Unless you say the joke in order to open someone's mind so he can do the mitzvahs better, so he can learn Torah better, and so on and so forth. That's where we were last time. So we are right now on page 22. It says 22 on the top, 29 in the bottom. It is chapter 7, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom. There's a full stop over there. There's a period. And we're going to continue over there. Ach mi shehu bezolelei basar, but all those people who are gluttons to eat meat, vesovei yain, and they drink good food, why they're doing it? Not to service God. Lemalot ta'avot gufo, they do it to fulfill their base desires. That's why they're doing it. Ve'nafsho be'emit, in other words, there's no connection to the godly soul. All they are connected to is the animal soul. Shu b'chinat yesod hamayim, this is the aspect of the attribute of water, like we learned in the first chapter of Tanya. Me'arba yesodot hara'im sheva, from the 4 elements that are evil in it. Shemimenu midat ha'ta'ava, that from it comes the attribute of desires. Hine, what happens if a person ate for his sake, for his own desires? What happens then? Hine al yedei zeh. Listen to what happens. I'm going to say something very controversial, and then we'll have to explain it. Al yedei zeh yored chayut habasar. Through this, the life, the energy that's in that flesh, vehayain, that in the flesh or the wine, shebekirbo, that inside of him, nichlal lefi sha'a, it is included in that moment, bera gamur, in complete ra. That means, I'm going to say it in a controversial manner. It will have to be more explained soon, but this is what it is. He's saying like this. There is no difference between eating a pig and between eating a kosher chicken. If you ate the kosher chicken for your own desires. At that moment that you ate the kosher chicken for your own desires, you downgraded it to the level of a pig. In other words, just now, that's what he says, you ate a pig. Why? Because you didn't do it for God, you did it for yourself. It says that the klipa, klipas noiga, can either elevate to God, it can become a mitzvah. If you do kiddush on the wine, that becomes a mitzvah. If you did kiddush because you had a party with your neighbor's wife, that becomes, you just downgraded it to become, to become the beragamur, with complete evil, shebeshalosh klipot atmeot. It just becomes just like the three klipas, that all the negative things that the Torah tells you not to do are vegufo na'aseh lahem levush u'merkava. And you consume, just like if a person would eat pig, his body would be made out of pig. Also now, he will eat those things for desires, his body will make out of pig. Even though it's not pig, it's kosher chicken. And here's the difference. You would think it will always remainder. No. This is the difference between klipas noiga and shalosh klipot atmeot. Pig, you can never elevate. And therefore, afterward, if you do a mitzvah with the energy that you ate from the pig, that mitzvah you did, but the pig wasn't elevated. What happened if I ate chicken for my own desires, kosher chicken for my own desires? I just ate pig. But then I'm going to use that energy to do a commandment, to do a mitzvah. I can elevate it. In other words, it's not jailed, it's not asur, the word asur. Prohibited in Hebrew means jail. It is not jailed in the klipa. There's a way for me to elevate it by using that energy later on for something good.
So, pig you cannot elevate.
Pig I cannot elevate, that's correct.
But what about non-kosher chicken?
Non-kosher chicken is just as pig. Okay. Yeah. לפי שעה, עד אשר ישוב האדם, until a person needs to do tshuva, ויחזור לעבודת Hashem, and return to the service of God. So when a person did tshuva and he returned to the service of God, he can take that energy out of the kosher chicken that he downgraded it down to the level of a pig, and he can re-elevate it. So it's not exactly the same. ולתורתו, he's going to use it for God's Torah. כי לפי שהיה בשר היתר, because this flesh was permitted, it was unjailed. Look at the words. Heiter means in Hebrew, it means permitted. It also means untied. It's not tied in the ends of the klipa. There's a way for us to bring it up after by our behavior from the ends of the klipa. ויין כשר, and it was kosher wine. לכך יכולים לחזור ולעלות. This is why we are on page Yud base, or page 31 in the bottom, Yud base in the top. לכך יכולים לחזור ולעלות עמו. That's why they are capable to go up, to return with him. בשובו לעבודת Hashem, when a person returns to the service of God. שזהו לשון היתר. This is what it means, untied, permissible. Permissible in היתר means untied. ומותר, in other words, it is untied. כלומר, which means, אינו קשור ואסור בידי החיצונים. It is not tied in the hand of the klipa to never go up. שלא יוכל לחזור ולעלות להשם. That will never be able to go up and to elevate to God. In other words, there's a way to elevate it. So even though we might have eaten it, the kosher chicken, for our needs, not for God's needs, there's a way to elevate it. After that, we do a mitzvah with that energy. That chicken goes up to God. There's only one problem. What's the problem? When a person ate the chicken, kosher chicken, for his own desires, for his own base desire, we said it was just like pig at that moment. And then when it was just like pig, it became part of his body. When it was just like pig. So even though it was elevated later on, by the person doing commandments, an impression was left in the body. Because when it entered the body, when it got consumed by your body, it had this shlosha klipot atmor, the three completely klipa that one cannot elevate, it had in it. So therefore it left an impression in the body that stays there. So even though afterwards you elevated it again, the impression that it came from a so-called pig was left in there. רק שהרשימו ממנו נשאר בגוף. The impression was left in the body, just like you wrote on the paper and then God erased it, and then you erased it. So even though it's not written in the paper, but you can see the impression. There's an impression on the body. The impression is left there. So what do? So you'll see there's actually a custom. I'm not sure that over here in America people don't do it so much. In Israel people do it all the time. What's the custom? בגוף, ועל כן, therefore, צריך הגוף, when you bury a body after 120 years, there's a ceremony you do for that impression. What is the ceremony you do? חיבוט הקבר. If you notice, over here they bury in a coffin, but in Israel they bury not in a coffin. So when they just come close with the body to the ground, like this, they let the body drop. Why is that custom? Why do they let the body drop? That, it says, that takes away, that makes the impression go away from that body. Yeah? The impression just like leaves the body from that chibut hakever, it's called. From that banging of the body down over here. כמו שכתוב, like it's written. Like you see this custom amongst Jews ever. Now we understand why is there such a custom and why there's chibut hakever. It's all for all the things we ate and drank for our own desires. Even though we used it afterwards for godly purposes. We did tshuva and we use it for godly purposes, it still leaves an impression. And the body, before it needs that to take the impression out of the body. וכן, and now we're going to discuss another thing. וכן החיות שבטיפות זרע. What about the drops of seed? The drops of seed that a person has been with his wife. I'm talking about his own wife, not his neighbor's wife. Yeah? If a person has relationship with his wife for God's sake, that's one thing. I don't know many people who have relationship with their wives for God's sake. So, yeah. שבטיפות זרע, that are in the seed, שיצאים ממנו, that came out of it. Usually, why did they come out of it? בתאווה בהמית. Let's be realistic. They came out of it because we're just like an animal, a desire of an animal, just the way a dog is. There's no difference. שלא קידש עצמו בשעת השמיש. In other words, the person did not make himself holy at the time he was having a relationship. עם אשתו טהורה, with his pure wife. So that goes down. So all those things, all those desires, as an impression of the body. מה שאין כן במאכלות אסורות, but it is not so with prohibited food, וביאות אסורות, and your neighbor's wife, שהם משלוש קליפות הטמאות לגמרי, that they're completely defiled, completely impure, there's no way to elevate them, הם אסורים וקשורים בידי החיצונים. They are completely tied in the hands of the outside forces, of the forces that go against God. Le'olam, forever. There's never a way to elevate them. We're going to discuss this soon. In Judaism, there's no such thing as never. But we're going to see soon. Yeah, there's no such thing as never. We're going to see soon. Ve'en olim misham, and you won't be able to elevate them עד כי יבוא יומם, until Mashiach comes. when Mashiach, when the Messiah comes and is going to eliminate evil from the land, they are going to be eliminated also. ויבולע המוות לנצח, when death is going to be conquered forever. כמו שכתוב, where is it written? It's written in the Navi, ואת רוח הטומאה האוויר מן הארץ. It says, the spirit of impurity I will remove from the land. So there's going to be a time where God is going to take care even of that. Or another thing, you don't have to wait for Mashiach. עד שיעשה תשובה גדולה כל כך, until he's going to do such a big תשובה, שזדונות נעשות לו כזכויות. That sins becomes like merit. I'm going to explain this a little bit. Tshuva, there are levels of tshuva. Today, everybody, tshuva means repentance. Everybody today discusses Baal Tshuva. He's a Baal Tshuva, they say. He did tshuva. Yeah? So I'll tell you what the definition of tshuva is. Tshuva means repentance. The minimum amount of repentance, what is it? So I'll give an example. I'm so-called a Baal Tshuva. I wasn't religious my entire life. I became religious. Yeah? Can you say that I'm a Baal Tshuva? So I'll tell you, it depends. There are many things I will never do again. I will never do again. So you say, so you're Baal Tshuva. So it says, not necessarily. Tshuva means you repented. What does it mean, repented? Repented means it keeps you up at night. That's what, at least the minimum amount. It keeps you up at night. You don't feel good about yourself. That's what tshuva means. You go through the day and you can't sleep at night because what did I do? Most of the things that I did wrong, forget then, even now, most of the things that I do wrong now, some of them keep me up at night, okay, but most of the things don't keep me up at night. I might not do them again, but they don't necessarily keep me out at night. If they don't keep me out at night, you're not a Baal Tshuva. The minimum requirement is that you feel regret. Regret means you're sorry for it. How do you know if you're sorry? If it keeps you up at night, you're sorry. If it doesn't keep you up at night, you're not sorry. So if I ate some non-kosher food once in my life and it doesn't keep me out at night, I don't know how sorry I am. Yeah? Give an example. Yeah? To give an example. I'll give you another story just to understand what tshuva means. There's a story in Lubavitch. Lubavitch, this is Russia, old Russia. There was a young man who, when he became 18 years old, decided to go off the way. He was a chassid. He ran away from religion, ran away from Judaism. He became a sailor. That's what he became. He became a sailor. He came back after like 15, 20 years. He decided, you know what, I had enough. I realized this is not the way. I'm coming back to my old traditions. So he came back to Lubavitch. He became a Baal Tshuva. Yeah, he became a Baal Tshuva. So he used to be to iron clothes. That was his job. But when he came back as a sailor, he came back with a nice tattoo of a woman who was half dressed, like you say. Yeah? You can imagine. Yeah. Now you can imagine what kind of a tattoo sailors get. I don't have to tell you. So one day, it says, one day they hear in Lubavitch screaming like crazy. So it says he couldn't take the tattoo anymore. So in the old time, there was a cast iron. That's how you used to iron the clothes. You put coals inside. It was before electricity. You put coals inside. He took that and he went like this. This is tshuva. You want to know what tshuva is? This is tshuva. I know for sure he regrets it. Yeah? You want to know? So this is an example of tshuva. Is it tshuva ilah? I don't know, but it is tshuva. This is for sure tshuva. In such a case, in such a circumstances, it says that the sin itself becomes merit. In other words, you can elevate the pig. Let's take another example just to understand it. A person ate pig, And because he ate pig, he thought to himself, to what level did I get? How low did I descend? And that broke him, and because of that, he did tshuva. Yeah? So in other words, over here, the eating of the pig caused him to go back to God. So this is an example of where the sin can become merit. But usually, that doesn't happen. I think in psychology it says you have to hit rock bottom. Right? So when you hit rock bottom and that caused you, the act that you hit rock bottom, that caused you, this is na'asa lo ke'zchuyot. Then the sin becomes like merit.
They said that Baal Tshuva is at the higher level.
We'll discuss this soon. Mamash shehi tshuva, and this tshuva needs to be done. If it is done out of fear, it doesn't count. It's not it doesn't count. It doesn't elevate the klippa. It doesn't elevate the impurities. It doesn't have the power to elevate the impurities if it is done on the field. It has to come a tshuva me'ahava, from love, me'umka deliba, from the depth of his heart, be'ahava rabba, with great amount of love, ve'chasheka, ve'nefesh okeka ledavka bo itbarach. The person wants to attach himself to God. Ve'tzam'a nasho le'Hashem, that his soul is completely thirsty, yearning for God, ke'eretz ayefa ve'tziyah, just like a land which is dry and waiting for water, lihiyot ki ad hena hayta nafsho be'eretz tziyah ve'tzalma. He feels like I was in death. I was walking in the death valley until now. That's how it feels like. That the act that I did right now was like in the death valley. Vehi hasitra achra. This is the other side. Verechoka me'or pnei Hashem. I used to behave far away from the light of God. Betachlit, completely. In other words, I used to walk against God. Velezot tzam'a nafsho beyeter ez. And this is why his soul is thirsting with great strength. Metzima'on nefashot tzadikim. Here comes, over here, this person is going to be more thirsty from God to God than a righteous person. A person who came to that level is going to have more thirst from God than that. Why? Make him. You can give an analogy, an easy analogy. If I come and I tell you there's $1 million down the street, the first guy to run and get it, he gets it. Everybody's going to run, right? Yeah, everybody's going to run. $1 million. That's the way a tzaddik runs to God. A tzaddik sees God as a reward. And there's a so-called $1 million. I'm going to run and grab godliness. That's what he's thinking. A Baal Tshuva doesn't think that. There's a lion that is behind him and running after him. And he's afraid to go back to where he was. So not only is he running towards godliness, he is also running away from the sin, from the lion. See, a tzaddik can't run away from the lion. He's never been there. He doesn't know what the lion is. He doesn't recognize it. This guy recognized he was there. He doesn't want to go back there. So he is going to run towards the goal with much greater strength than the tzaddik. Kema'amar Ramzal, just like our sages teaches us, b'makom sheba'alei tshuva omdim, it is said that in a place that a Baal Tshuva stands, even tzaddikim gmurim cannot stand. Even complete righteous persons cannot stand. A Baal Tshuva that really did tshuva from Ahava Rabbah, this is something else. Now, there's not many people who reach this level. Yeah, but actually, historically, we know of one that's ever been written. I know of one. There must have been more. The one that we know is King David. Yeah? Besides King David, I don't know how many people in the history of the world actually achieved that level. Besides King David. So it's not something that you can depend on, I'm going to sin and elevate. It's not going to happen usually. Ve'al tshuva me'ahava rabba zo. And on this kind of tshuva, from this kind of love, amru, the saying is, שזדונות נעשות לו כזכויות. That the sin becomes like merit. Why? הואיל ועל ידי זה, notice, it's the sin that makes him run towards God. It's the sin that makes him run towards God. Because of that, the sin is the merit. Because the sin gives him the energy to get closer to God. הואיל ועל ידי זה בא לאהבה רבה. Because of that sin, he came to great love of God. אבל תשובה שלא מאהבה זו, but regular tshuva of most people, that he doesn't get to this kind of love, אף שהיא תשובה נכונה, even though we call it tshuva, and it is correct, והשם יסלח לו, and God is going to forgive him, everything is good. God's going to forgive him. מכל מקום, nevertheless, לא נעשו לו כזכויות. The impurity doesn't elevate. It doesn't become like a merit. You cannot elevate the impurity. ואין עולים מהקליפה לגמרי, and they're never going to come from the klipa עד את קץ שיבולה המוות לנצח, until Mashiach comes. Only Mashiach, when he eliminates all the impurities in the world, it's going to be gone. But until then, until Mashiach comes, there's no way to elevate it. So better don't get close to it. You know, there was once a chassid who came, I think it was the Frierdiker Rebbe, maybe it was the Rebbe Rashab. It might have been Rebbe Rashab. He came to the Rebbe Rashab and he told him he did this and this. And he needs to do tshuva. He wants to do tshuva. So the Rebbe Rashab told him, give charity $20,000, let's say. He was a regular guy, he didn't have $20,000 exactly to give to charity. So he told the Rebbe, I can't afford to. So the Rebbe says, if you can't afford to pay, don't sin. If you can't afford, don't sin. The same thing over here. If you can't elevate it, there's no way for you to don't go there. Don't go there.
Do one more sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we eat on Shabbat, are we eating for ourselves or are we eating for Hashem?
Excellent. So we discussed this before. As long as you have on Shabbat the overall meaning that Shabbat is for God, you're safe. Okay? But you cannot just have in Shabbat, get drunk and do stupid things and call it, I'm doing it for God. Yeah? It has to be in the back of your mind, I'm doing a mitzvah, God told me to enjoy food on Shabbat. Somewhere in your mind it has to be.
So
Every time you eat.
Remind ourselves
That's right.
we're doing it to do mitzvah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. If a person can eat in Shabbat just for himself also.
Because I know that on Shabbat you're supposed to.
That's right. That's right.
Enjoy
So in Shabbat it becomes a mitzvah, but only in Shabbat. It's easy to do it on Shabbat. Yeah.
So here we say that when the Mashiach comes, he's going to remove impurity.
Uh-huh.
So I may be wrong, but does that, because I understand, somewhere I read, not I read, but I was told that when Mashiach comes, eating pig is permissible.
No. Close, but no. It says when Mashiach comes, pig will become kosher. Yeah. It says pig will become kosher. Not necessarily you'll be allowed to eat it. We'll discuss it when we get there. We'll see that. We'll see. We'll see if the...
No, but the way you say it could explain that doesn't mean necessarily.
You can eat it. It will become kosher. We'll see if you can eat it. There has to be a Kabbalah. There has to be a lot of rules for that. Yeah. But we're going to talk about now a specific thing that has to do with men. Most men over here are married, so they don't have this problem now. But when they were younger, they had these problems. So this, we discuss it. החיות שבטיפות זרע, what about the חיות, the life, the energy in the drops of seed שיצאו ממנו לבטלה, that came out of a person, not in a vessel of a woman, let's call it. Yeah, not in a, I'm going to try to say, not with a woman. Yeah? It came out for no reason. In other words, there was no need. A person just did it for himself. There wasn't even a woman involved. אף שירדה ונכללה בשלוש קליפות הטמאות. So it says, this is for sure like pig. Like we say, it's a kosher chicken. And here it is prohibited even. It's completely prohibited. So he says, for that you don't even need tshuva. You can elevate it. No, you don't need higher level of tshuva, sorry. You don't need the higher level of tshuva. How can one elevate it? One can bring it up from there, b'tshuva nechona, when a person does tshuva, and again, tshuva means a decision I will never do it again. And it keeps me up at night. How did I do it? ובכוונה עצומה בקריאת שמע. And when a person has a great kavana, great intent, when he's doing kriyat shema shal hamitah, when he reads the shema before he goes to bed, כנודע מהאריזל. This is Kabbalistic terms that we know from the Arizal. ומרומז בגמרא, this is also hinted in the Gemara, כל הקורא קריאת שמע על מיטתו, the Gemara said, anybody who reads the shema before he goes to bed, כאילו אוחז חרב של שתי פיות. It is as if he's holding a sword with two blades. להרוג גופות החיצונים, to kill all this impurity that came out of the person. This is, let's discuss. All these things are potential lives that a person wasted. This is what it is. It's almost like murdering hundreds of thousands of kids. This is what it is. A person just made sure that these things are not going to become into this world. שנעשו לבוש לחיות שבטיפות. That they become a garment to the energy that are in those drops. ועולה החיות מהם כיודע ליודעכן. And all the energy can come up with good tshuva and with krishma, with intentions on the krishma. We're not going to go what the intentions are right now. Just that the person will know. ולכן, and this is why it's very interesting, in the Torah, in all the forbidden relationships, it doesn't discuss that sin. Why? Because the forbidden relationship can never come up. Yeah? This can come up with tshuva, yeah? And with krishma. There's a way to bring it up. ולכן לא הוזכר אבון זרע לבטלה בתורה בכלל ביות אסורות. This why, this seed for no reason is not mentioned in the Torah when it comes to forbidden relationship. But you should know, it's very interesting, שחמור מהן. It's even worse than them. Why? Why is it worse from them? There's a concept of kamus over here. Kamut. It is not worse because it's worse because it is the killing, let's call it not killing. It's the killing of potential, hundreds of thousands of potential lives. That's what a person does. He wasted hundreds of thousands of potential lives. שחמור מהם. וגדול לבונו בבחינת הגדלות וריבוי הטומאה. It's not as severe as the prohibited relationship. It's not as severe in impurity, but it in the kamut. How do you say kamut? Amount. In the amount, it is billions of times more severe. The amount is more severe, not the impurity. The impurity is less severe. The amount is more severe.
But you know, it's any night that you don't have a woman is a wasted night. Whether you got the seed or not, physiologically it makes zero difference.
I don't know. We're going to discuss for example, we know that Reuven, I don't know if we're talking spiritually here. We know that Reuven, Yaakov said on Reuven, Reshit Oni. What is Reshit Oni? He is my first seed. So even though Yaakov called Reuven, this is my first seed that came out of me. In other words, he never wasted. That was his first seed. Okay?
You said Shuva, and then you said another word.
Reading Shema on the reading Shema.
Just a minute ago, you said Shuva, and then you said another word. I didn't understand what that was.
Reading Shema, saying the Shema when you go to sleep.
Never mind. I'll ask you later.
Okay. וריבוי התומה והקליפות שמוליד, that is doing, the amount is an enormous amount. הוא מרבה במאוד מאוד בהוצאת צרע לבטלה. The amount is vast. יותר מביאות אסורות. Worse than ביאות אסורות. So what's the difference? What happens with a prohibited relationship? רק שבביאות אסורות, in for prohibited relationships, there's going to come, it is possible, circumstances, which in Judaism almost doesn't exist, that a person cannot do tshuva. How? מוסיף כוח וחיות בקליפת טמאה. He brings life into the klipa itself. ביותר. עד שאינו יכול לעלות משם החיות בתשובה. That he is not capable of bringing that life through tshuva. Let's take an example. A person went with his neighbor's wife. He had a relationship with her, and there's only one kid. Only one kid. It's not there's more than one kid. What happens? Let's do it. The Haggaha. This is a Kabbalistic thing. מפני שנקלטה ביסוד הנוקבה, because that seed got immersed in the impurity of the female, the beklipa, and it becomes forbidden relationship. המקבלת וקולטת החיות מהקדושה. That in the seed itself is klipas noiga. You can either elevate it or you can bring it down. Now, when you just spread it for nowhere, there's a way to elevate it afterwards. If it goes. But over here, one of the seed got grasped, and what happened? There was a child made. And that child now, in himself, becomes a klipa. The child is called the mamzer in Judaism. He may never come within the Jewish tradition. No one is not allowed to get married to any Jew. מה שאין כן בזרע לבטלה, it is not so when a person just spends his seed, שאין שם בחינת נוקבה, there's not the female area to accept it, רק שכוחותיה וחיילותיה מלבישים לחיות שבטיפות כיודע על ידי כן, but it's just a lot of זהו. אלא אם כן יעשה תשובה מאהבה רבה. So a person has been with his neighbor's wife, and there's no child. He can do tshuva. There's tshuva for that. He can do tshuva from Ava Rabba, which most people will not be able to, but if that led him to be a good guy afterwards, maybe, let's call it. כל כך עד שזדונות נעשות לו כזכיות, then he can elevate the act. ובזה יובן מאמר רז"ל. Now we're going to understand something that the sages have taught. The sages have taught, אין דבר העומד בפני התשובה. There's nothing that can stand in front of tshuva. There's nothing that can eliminate a person from doing tshuva. There's no act that you can do that you cannot do tshuva for. And then the sages continue, hold on one second. I can show you something that if you do tshuva, you can't eliminate. How? איזה מעוות שלא יכול לתקון? How can there be a wrong behavior that you cannot fix? זה שבא על הערווה, somebody who came on somebody else's wife, somebody had a relationship, for example, with somebody else's wife, והוליד ממזר, and now there's a child in this world already. In other words, there's already an existence in this world of the sin. This child becomes the sin right here. He can do tshuva until tomorrow. The child exists. When the child exists, what are you going to do? So even if you do tshuva rabbah, the child still exists. It's going to be problematic. שאז, that then, גם אם יעשה תשובה גדולה כל כך, even if he's going to do the highest level of תשובה, אי אפשר לו להעלות החיות לקדושה. That child forever will remain impure. There's no way for him to elevate the child. שכבר ירדה לעולם הזה. Because that energy, he already created a metzias, as an object of sin, let's call it. ונתלבשה בגוף בשר ודם, and it got dressed in a flesh, in a human being. Now the poor human being, it's not his fault. He's a mamzer, but that's what it is. He will always be a mamzer.
So you can't do tshuva.
The father cannot do tshuva.
What about the son?
The son didn't do anything wrong. But he's a product of a sin.
So
He's a Jew, but he's not allowed to get married to a Jew.
So what's the difference between the Chazir?
Why should he be punished for that?
Why can't they also bring him up as a Chazir? It looks like he's worse than a Chazir. Because if the Chazir if I do tshuva from love, and I can elevate the Chazir, how come if I do tshuva from love, I can elevate him?
When you elevate the Chazir, you elevate the energy. You elevate the energy of the Chazir. The Chazir itself will always remain Chazir. You can't elevate it. Over here, that became an object. That spiritual energy became an object of sin, let's call it. And there's no way to elevate it. Now, the poor kid didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do nothing wrong. You can't blame the kid. Yeah, the kid did nothing wrong, but he's an object of sin. Yeah, and that there's no way to elevate. The father will never be able to elevate. There's a way to bring a mamzer back into the Jewish nation. We're not going to discuss it now. Yeah, it's a whole tricky way. It's complicated.
Then the story of Yehuda and Tamar.
That's right. It's very problematic. All the things with Mashiach is very problematic. Ruth and Boaz is also very problematic. Ishai is very problematic. You know, Ishai actually divorced his wife because of Ruth and Boaz. We'll discuss it some other time. Yeah, because he thought he's a mamzer, and therefore, it was it's a whole thing within Mashiach. It looks like this is the object of Mashiach. Mashiach is going to elevate all this evil from the world. This is the idea of Shabtai Tzvi. Shabtai Tzvi said we're going to do sins, and then we're going to do tshuva, and by doing sins that a person is not allowed to do, like sleep with somebody else's wife, that was one big thing that he used to do. He used to have all kinds of orgies or whatever with Shabtai Tzvi. It says later on we're all going to do tshuva and we're going to be elevating it. Yeah, that was the idea. It didn't really work, as we all know that Shabtai Tzvi, where he went.
That's the product of adultery.
Yeah.
It's specifically with adultery.
That's right.
But what about babies that are born outside of a marriage, maybe?
It's not a problem.
Okay.
That's not a problem at all. I mean, it's not a problem. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not called the mamzer in Israel. No. It's only over here where the klipa. Remember what's happening. We have the three shalosh klipot atmeot. The three klippas that are complete impurity, there's no way to elevate. There's a klippa that is not impurity, that it's in between, that you can elevate it. For example, let's take a person's seed. If a person is having an act with his wife because he wants to do the commandment of be fruitful and multiply, he's thinking about it, he wants to have another Jew coming to this world to help the entire Jewish nation do the work. That's why he has a relationship with his wife, to have another servant of God. Yeah, that's the only thing he's thinking about. Excellent. Then you just elevated it. Most people are not going to have only that in mind. They're also going to have my own physical desires. When a person has his own physical desires in mind, for that moment, that seed comes down to klipa. If it's a person's wife, not the end of the world. Later on, that kid is going to do commandments. So it's going to get elevated again. The problem, if it's not your wife, it's somebody else's wife, now it's embedded within the klipa forever. There's no way, even if you do tshuva, even if you try to, the kid does all the mitzvahs in the world, he is not be able to go out of the status of where you put him in. You put him in, that seed, you put him in there, and he's going to stay in that level forever. Which level? A level that he may not come within the Jewish nation. That's why a person has to be very careful in things.
If the man's married and the woman's not married, is it still? It's still
Not a problem. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Wow. Only if the woman's married, he's married to somebody
That's
else.
right.
But if a man has a relationship with a Jewish woman outside of his marriage and she's not married,
Not a problem.
the kid's not taken.
A man is allowed to marry more than one wife.
I forgot about that.
More than one wife. A woman is not allowed to marry more than one husband.
I got it.
In Jewish tradition, yeah, in Judaism. By the way, once we have decrees and so far and so forth, the decrees hold some kind of klipa also, because there's a decree today not to marry two wives and so on and so forth. So that comes into there, but we're talking just
No, I was just curious
in general.
about the rule about that.
Yeah.
And if you have a married friend, wife, but she's not Jewish, you're okay.
No, then you take a Jewish seed and you make a non-Jewish child.
Well, but he can convert.
Yeah.
There is a
Yeah, that's right. There's a way. That's right. There's a way to elevate. Right, so there's a way back. Very good. Very good. Mamzer is the deepest problem. It can never be elevated. A non-Jewish child can be elevated.
So we were talking about souls that come from above.
Uh-huh.
And this soul comes to this world as a mamzer.
I'm going to say something very harsh.
Okay.
Think about what I'm saying. It's harsh, but it's deep.
Okay.
If a child puts his hand in the fire, he's a kid, he doesn't know. Is it fair that he gets burnt?
Well, it's physical.
Is it fair?
It's not a question of fair or not.
It's not a question of fair or not. That's the situation a person created. You're right, it's not fair. It's not a question of fair or not. A person created such a condition. It's got nothing to do with fairness. A person created that entity. It's got nothing to do with fairness. You're right, it isn't fair. But again, with Judaism, there's ways to bring even a mamzer back into the flock, but it's complicated. We're not going to do that now.
wasting seed.